we're talking about sound advice. You should always be on your farm the fifth wheel. You should always be the spare tire.
Right.
That's the way to set up a farm for it to be durable in times. Like you need to be the extra hand. But everything needs to be organized so that the workload gets done without you. That's how you run a farm. Takes time.
Yeah.
But because when that wheel falls out and you don't have that extra that spare tire, you're and that can really create a lot of mismatch and problems. And so the way I'm setting up things is like I'm organizing it so that if I'm not there, it's okay, but I'm there.
Right.
I'm still there, but I've learned that from kitchens.
Sage advice from industry legend. What's your take on it, Karl?
I was shouting amen.
You've pretty much set your farm up to do this very thing.
Right. And for me, it's freeing what he said, because it's true. I mean, farming is so demanding. Most farmers don't get to leave their farm. Think about the dairy, the farmer who's got all their dairy cows, they've got to get up 4 a.m. and then they've got to do it again in the evening, and they just never get to leave. And most farmers are that mentality that nobody else touches my stuff. And I have found such great reprieve from being able to walk away from the farm. We can go take a family trip, and most people that are doing what we're doing can't do that because they've got to water the plants. They got to have, they have to be there to make sure that stuff stays alive. And so I would echo his sentiments 100% on that. And it's every not only from that perspective, but the whole goal of life. You've probably found a little bit of meaning in life if you realize like it's not about you, it's about the succession, right? So there was a profound quote that I still remember. It was like, from the moment you enter into a position, your goal is to start finding your successor. When you do that, when you have that mentality, you start coaching people, bringing them on, and you realize you're not, you're expendable. You don't have to be there, but it's definitely nice sentiments.
You're there, affirming.
Yeah.
It's just nice to hear somebody say it in a way that you've been practicing.
Yeah.
That it's a proven system, right? What he's been doing up there for the last 20 years. In part of necessity, part of innately, you've just had to set up for your farm. So it's just nice to hear that you're not the only one, so to speak. Directly opposite of that, Michael, you're a lone wolf, buddy.
That clip gave me anxiety.
Good. But go ahead, and then hopefully I'll make you feel better.
Yeah, no, I'm envious. I admire that. I wish I had that person that I could rely on to take care of stuff when I'm not able to be there. I've got a couple of friends that if I have to go out of town, they know how to turn on the solar powered water pump and open the water totes, and like they know how the water system works. And I mean, they could take care of it for a couple of days, but I mean, everything he said, I would love to have, but I don't. So I really don't have much to comment on that on that clip, other than I'm envious and completely understand what he's talking about.
But at the same time, as we talked about in the last episode, that is not how you're set up.
Mm-hmm.
To some degree, you don't want to be set up that way. And so it's one of those things where you can look at advice like this and you can directly apply it to your operation because it's exactly what you do and what you need to hear, right? Or you can take it and go, I understand the wisdom of it. And if one of 1,000 things were different, sure.
Or I strive to when I'm able to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I can use that as like context and a goal one day.
Right. And that's not to say that when you do retire from being a teacher that you don't, not that you have to go all in, because you obviously want to stay at a certain size to allow yourself to do other things. And so even bringing in somebody to do a quarter of the work or 20% of the work,
plant carrots,
you can still take, plant those carrots. Jeez, dude, you're anti-carrot.
Yeah.
Another t-shirt idea, anti-carrot, Michael Bell. But it's just good that you can recognize that there's wisdom in what he's saying, and there's also wisdom in knowing that's not applicable to my situation.
I think there's also, as I said at the beginning when I started rambling is that there's a sense of pride of doing it yourself too. I like my mom's side of the family. There's no way they would ever let anybody do anything. And I did that for the longest time. I mean, I still remember the first time, I was always been a DIYer. And the first time I decided to hire out a project, and it was to put gutters on my house. And the guy came down like in an hour and a half and wanted a $750 check. And I'm like, wow, he did. But I'm like, you got to go back up there, throw some sweat on your face, like, 'cause I was like, it was my first time ever having to write a check out to do something that I could have done, and I struggle with that. It was my own thing, but that's how my family is too. It's very rewarding to be able to do that, And so there's I think a bunch of different perspectives on that. There's one, you take so much pride that it's really difficult. The problem is you kind of trap yourself because you can't leave, And 3, you don't really have a succession plan. What happens if you get injured? What happens if, seasons of life change? So,
and I think also with that is this understanding that you are the 5th person, which means if I do hire somebody to plant the carrots, there's no way in hell they're going to plant the carrots exactly like how Michael wants it, but it's going to be in an acceptable level to allow him to go do the things that either he wants to do or it's more important of his time.
Yeah.
And anytime you have employees, there's that give and take. Sometimes they do it less than what you would. Sometimes they completely miss the mark, and an equal amount of time, they do it better than what you would have done anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a give and take that winds up canceling itself out a lot of times.
You also have and I feel like this is with anything that we do, like you think you can do it better than anybody. So like you've got to be able to let your ego not get in your way of letting others help you.
Yep.
That's really tough because I've been a perfectionist and accused of a perfectionist, and I feel like I'm a recovering perfectionist. But it doesn't bother me so much now when I have Gage. He's a young guy, very proud of what he's been able to do, but he'll still he's only 18, and so I've been able to allow more grace for that. And it's like, oh well, it's there's probably some loss and financial loss in there too, but you get over some of that.
Well, you have to. Again, I always like to go, where's this money and labor going? And it may be a loss in the moment, but if you aggregate it out, it's like training. You're paying to train. It's on the job training.
Exactly.
There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be step backs. There's going to be corrections and oversteerings. And through that, you're going to get somebody that's more in step with what you're going to do.
Right. I think something to note on that, though, is also on this topic is scale. Like where are you at? Like Jam's facility and his operation, he can't do that by himself.
Right.
I mean, he could, his personal life would be absent.
Mm-hmm.
So, where we're at, I mean, we're probably like our operation is probably a 2 full-time person job right now. I think like if I were to add up all the hours that everybody puts in a week. In yours, I mean, granted, farming can take every minute of your time. I mean, you could probably spend.
Yeah, I was about to say, you could probably, you need somebody full time just to pull weeds.
Yeah.
But is that going to pay the bills?
No.
Probably not. And any other farm that I've ever been to ever, except for like 1 or 2, there's weeds all over the place.
Right.
I mean, that's just a part of it, so there's things you want to do. And to the point you made on a previous podcast, not everything is going to yield a direct sale. It may just be something you want.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a time and place for it. You're going to have a tour out, pull the weeds.
Right.
If you're right in the thick of harvest season and everything's full out, you can let some of that stuff go and pick your battles.
Yeah, you have to.